In an age of rampant medical propaganda, Americans must rise as relentless warriors defending health freedom. Welcome to GoldCare Townhall, a battlefield where truth clashes with Big Pharma's lies. We unite as informed citizens, wielding knowledge as our deadliest weapon in the fight for medical autonomy. Tonight, we bring you an exclusive event moderated by the fearless Dr. Simone Gold that confronts the burning question, outbreak, measles or madness? Tonight's town hall features two champions of medical truth, legendary medical freedom advocate Bigtree and the recent CDC Director nominee, Dr. David Weldon. Is measles really dangerous, and should you take the shot? In this era of pandemics and propaganda, how do you know which is which? This town hall is proudly sponsored by GoldCare, the platform committed to defending your rights and unleashing the freedom of medical choice. At GoldCare, we're more than just a healthcare provider. We're a united force, driven by the unyielding belief that freedom begins with informed consent. This robust discussion will deliver the unfiltered truth about measles, expose the madness surrounding the disease, and tear down the inevitable conflicts of interest choking Big Pharma. GoldCare, built for you, powered by freedom, trusted by thousands.
Welcome to GoldCare Medical Townhall, and thank you so much for being here. We have an amazing discussion lined up for you this evening. Joining us tonight is Bigtree, one of the preeminent voices in the vaccine risk awareness movement around the world. He is the founder of the nonprofit Informed Consent Action Network and host of The Highwire. We also have Dr. David Weldon, a practicing physician and former congressman who was a recent nominee for the CDC Director. Our moderator is Dr. Simone Gold, founder and CEO of GoldCare. Tonight, we'll discuss the hot topic of measles and the recent hysteria around the viral illness, which the mainstream media is pushing as another COVID-style pandemic, stirring up fear across the nation. Our town hall speakers will uncover Big Pharma's disturbing corruption and expose the hidden conflicts of interest that mainstream sources conveniently ignore. You don't have to wander alone in this medical battle. You can join a community that challenges false narratives and demands total transparency. When you arm yourself with the facts, you're protected against propaganda and confusing news reports that keep you up at night worried about your kids and your family. Becoming a GoldCare member is a critical first step to reclaiming your freedom and control so you can push back against medical tyranny. We've got the perfect opportunity for you to join GoldCare tonight. Dr. Gold is graciously offering your first month of GoldCare membership on her. That's right, Dr. Gold is picking up the tab for your first month. Plus, you'll receive the GoldCare Medical Research Pack with all of the vetted information about measles that you'll hear tonight. This isn't a mainstream media or legacy healthcare packet. It's the exact research Dr. Gold and our speakers are referencing tonight at the GoldCare Medical Town Hall. Simply visit goldcare.com/Dr. Gold to claim your complimentary first month. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Dr. Simone Gold.
Control room, I'm good to go? Okay. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be here because I have been wanting to talk about measles in a public forum for quite some time now. Most of you know that I came to attention to the media, I suppose, in 2020 because of all the propaganda that was swirling around COVID. But that was not the last time you were going to hear about that. Many of you have heard me say that tyranny is going to come to our shores through medical propaganda. So that is why we're talking about measles tonight. First, as a practicing physician, let me just tell you exactly what measles is, and what it isn't, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So this is just going to be kind of a quick summary of some facts on measles before we turn to our two esteemed guests. First, measles is a viral illness. It's got runny nose, cough, eye irritation, fever, and then it's followed by a rash. Many of you, know the red spots rash. It's contagious when just prior to the rash and for the first 3 to 4 days of the rash. Most cases of measles are quite benign and are definitely not reported to the CDC. Before the measles vaccination program was introduced, nearly everybody contracted measles and obtained lifetime immunity by age 15, I would say. Very rarely, measles can result in serious complications such as brain damage and death. It's rare. Typical treatment in the era before vaccination, when people did get measles, they just stayed home because it is very contagious. Rest. The World Health Organization and our Secretary of Health has, of course, mentioned the importance of vitamin A, which is a treatment for people who are pretty sick with measles. There's also some generic drugs that are available. And I do want to share with you that the shot that's out there these days for measles is the MMR. There is no solo measles shot that you can take. So why are we talking about this today? Well, it's been in the news a lot lately that there have been a couple of cases of measles in Texas, and there's been a lot of hype around the fact that these were in unvaccinated children. So we're going to talk about today what's true and what's not true. One of the cases of these children, we've reviewed one of the cases, and it does not appear that this child died of measles at all. It appears that this child died of improperly treated bacterial pneumonia. Other pieces of data that people need to keep in mind is, what is the media gaining by giving you certain information and not giving you other information? They're talking about a couple of shots, a couple of cases of measles, 200, 300 measles. How does that compare to other years? What is that in context? I'm just going to show you a couple of quick slides here that are going to show you about the success or non-success of the measles vaccination program in terms of keeping measles at bay. Control room, slide 1, please. Nope. There. Okay. So this is, since the shots were released, the measles vaccination shot was released, you can see that the incidence of measles has apparently gone to virtually zero, which has led a lot of people to think that the shot has been the reason why measles has disappeared. I will share with you, this is very similar to a slide that I saw in medical school. This is what I was shown, and I didn't really think to look beyond that. That's what I was taught. Slide 2, please. However, when you look back over a historical record, this is the incidence of measles mortality prior to the shot vaccination program being introduced until now. You can see that 98% of measles was eradicated prior to the vaccination program. This I was not shown in medical school, and it is one of the things that awakened me to the fact that we were being propagandized even as physicians. Why was I shown the first slide in medical school and I was not shown the second slide? That's all the slides I'll show. I'd like to turn to one of my favorite people, my guest, my first guest is, I was about to say doctor, I've just given you a doctorate degree, Del Bigtree. I met Del in 2020, and he was just a fierce advocate for the truth. And so I just want to hear, honestly, Del, you could talk for hours, right? Just what is your perspective on what you're hearing in the news about measles, quote unquote?
Yeah, I think I do want to state very clearly that the two other guest hosts here are doctors. I'm not. I'm just a journalist. All I've ever done, I come from a science journalism base, having worked at the Doctor's Television Show. I was in psychology before that, working with the Dr. Phil Show. So reading medical journals and turning it into media. This is a very, I think, complex moment in time. The fact that Robert Kennedy Jr. is HHS secretary, and now we have the first 2 deaths from measles we've seen in decades. As you pointed out, the death rate of measles, if you look at the vital statistics documents of what was the CDC now, but sort of the medical records keeper in 1960, the death rate was 1 in 10,000 amongst the infected. It was about 1 in 500,000 on a population level, since not everybody caught it, mostly because they had lifelong immunity, right? Measles would just sweep through every once in a while and get those little pockets of new kids and stuff that had been born into areas. And when there was enough of them, measles would come through, they would all catch it. And then you would have herd immunity as we know. In fact, that term comes from natural immunity. It's been commandeered by the pharmaceutical industry to mean vaccinated immunity. But the real truth is, and I think that we're going to look at this more and more over the years to come, is I don't believe that the vaccine program is creating herd immunity. I think that, especially in many of the vaccines, MMR is the measles is the most interesting one to study right now. But I can tell you for a fact, we know that polio vaccine doesn't stop transmission. So it doesn't actually give herd immunity. It only gives protection from the disease. This is something we learned during COVID, that the COVID vaccine might protect against, severity of illness, but you were able to contract it, carry it, give it to other people. So that means that it's a leaky vaccine. It's not giving you true herd immunity. And as we look at the Disneyland outbreak, I thought one of the things that was interesting was 50% of the people that got measles in the Disneyland outbreak were adults, which means they were most likely vaccinated. They knew for a fact that like about 30% of them were in fact vaccinated. Another 30% caught the vaccine strain of measles. And so that data is a mess. When you look at it, it's not the story we're being told that it's the unvaccinated that are spreading these things. But here in Texas, it's a problematic moment. I think what I would say, and I'm curious what Dr. Weldon's perspective is, but the right questions are not being asked right now. Why have these 2 children died in Texas? The media wants to scream about the fact that they're not vaccinated, but none of our grandparents were vaccinated back when this was a Brady Bunch episode. Everyone in the Brady Bunch caught it. They're checking it off on a chalkboard. There's a laugh track. They're giggling. What we're seeing now with 2 children having died inside of, I think it's 400 or 500 cases, that is not 1 in 10,000. That is something completely different. So my question would be, has medicine forgotten how to treat something that was once a Brady Bunch episode, and this is medical malpractice or lack of education? Or are we looking at a more virulent and perhaps deadly strain of measles? And if that's the case, how did that happen with the vaccine program? Did the vaccine pressure this virus to become more deadly? A lot of questions around science. If this is a deadlier measles, then we need to start looking at why. That's a very troubling perspective. But those are 2 questions you don't hear at all. All they want to scream is, this is unvaccinated community. It's Robert Kennedy Jr.'s fault. The truth is most of these people, they're Mennonites. They're very secluded. And I think when they were asked, most had never heard of Robert Kennedy Jr. So you can't blame this on him, but it is a very complicated story right now in America.
Actually, I'm really curious to hear your opinion on that, Dr. Weldon, is if you think this is a more virulent strain. My general feeling is not. I looked at the records of one of the children, what's available publicly. I was not hired by anybody, but it seemed to me that this child was given the wrong antibiotics. It's certainly how it seemed to me for bacterial pneumonia. But I definitely want to hear the answer to that. And I think our audience would be very interested also to know if you think measles has become politicized, and just your opinion on that.
Oh, yes. Measles has become very politicized. The theory Dell is talking about, he actually espoused 2 theories. Number 1, doctors have forgotten how to treat it because they don't see it anymore. And I think there may be some, plausible notion to that. The other one is it a more virulent strain of measles? And that's a good question for, very, very knowledgeable virologists to start looking at. It actually turns out, like with all these viruses, there are multiple different strains of measles virus, but they're all addressed basically by the vaccine. But it's interesting, if you look at the package insert for the vaccine, it's only 97% effective, okay? So if you got 100 kids, and you vaccinate all 100 of them, and measles comes into your community, 3 of them can get it. And as I understand it, some of the cases in Texas right now have been vaccinated people. And so these vaccines are not, there's very few vaccines are 100%. And so, but unquestionably, if you want to get into the politics of this, the media and pharma, who basically controls a lot of the media, unfortunately, are playing this to the hilt, and they're basically trying to, well, first of all, they were trying to get rid of me, and then secondly, they're trying to box Bobby Kennedy in so that he can't do a lot of the kind of research that I wanted to see done on the safety of these vaccines. The safety research on most of these vaccines is very poor, and in particular, it's very poor on measles. I mean, there's never been a prospective study in vaccinated versus unvaccinated, for example. Fundamental study, you come up with a new drug for high blood pressure, you'll give it to 2 different groups. One gets it, one gets a placebo. We've never done anything like that with these vaccines. So we really need good research. If I could go on for 1 more minute, Dr. Gold mentioned that the first death appears not to have been a measles pneumonia death. Measles typically causes like a cold-like syndrome and then a virus, but you frequently have a cough, and what you have is a bad bronchitis, but it occasionally progresses into pneumonia, where the viral infection is going down into the lungs, and that has been well documented in the medical literature. It can kill some people, but the first death appears to have been a death from a bacteria. At least that's based on the review of the medical record, and that the treating physician failed to prescribe the right antibiotics, and that case is what you call a secondary pneumonia, where the child may have been weakened by the measles virus, and then a bacterial pneumonia came in. And that is definitely something that happens with influenza as well as with measles. Now, the second case, I haven't seen any medical information on it, but back to the politics of this. Now the media can say 2 deaths in unvaccinated kids, and we haven't had a death in 10 or 15 years. Is this related to anything Bobby Kennedy has done? No, he hasn't done anything. I mean, he just got confirmed about 4 weeks ago, and all he ever said to me that he wanted me to do was just do some really good objective research, and he did not want to, take the measles vaccine off the pediatric schedule.
Thank you so much, Dr. Weldon. Del, you've been in this fight a lot longer than I've been in terms of informed consent for parents and citizens at large. What do you think is the solution for people who just really want to know what to do? They read these stories, they hear these stories, and they don't know what to think. They don't know what to believe. Like, how do you combat that?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of what Robert Kennedy Jr. has really said he wants to do, is bring back informed consent. The beginning of that is informed. We need to be informed. We need to recognize, as he pointed out in one of his first posts, that vitamin A, if you are infected, is a great way to treat it. That a healthy, balanced, nutritious diet, taking supplements, is a great way to have a strong body that can handle situations like this. And then also pointed out that, vaccinations is also an option, which bothered a lot of people in the community that I speak to a lot. But I would say that's what he promised you he was going to do. I mean, all of the media was saying that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to come in and take your vaccines away. He kept saying, I promise you, I'm not. I'm going to do research on them. You're going to know more about what they can and can't do, how long they last, how many injuries they create. And let's be clear, vaccine injury is real. It affects children, die and are maimed and injured every single year in America and around the world. There's a warning label that is wrapped around that vaccine, just like it's wrapped around every drug. Someone's going to have an allergic reaction. Someone's going to have inflammation event. Someone will have encephalitis. Somebody might get multiple sclerosis or Guillain-Barré syndrome. I'm naming all things that are on the warning label for a measles vaccine. The fact that you don't know that, and that's brand new information to you, means our medical system is not doing its job. It's cheating. It's got to treat it like every other drug. And then once you're informed, you should, and one of the things I want people to be careful of is, people will just stop vaccinating thinking that makes them healthy. You can't stop vaccinating and go and eat Doritos and drink Coca-Cola and hop by McDonald's every other drive home and expect that somehow you're a healthy person. People that don't vaccinate tend to live much healthier lives in many different ways. They exercise. They drink bottled water. They don't drink fluoridated water. There's a whole mindset around having a holistic body, but you also have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for when things go serious. What does that mean? Do you have some sort of way to inhale, whether it's budesonide, which Dr. Richard Bartlett's been having a lot of success with? Do you have a doctor practitioner that you go to when things go next level? And by the way, they go next level for the vaccinated the same way they do for the unvaccinated. What I want to say is there's no perfect option out there. Every choice we make as parents has risk to it. Not vaccinating has risks. Vaccinating has risks. And it's your job as a parent to do your research and find the practitioners that you trust and believe in, and work every day and be aware of how your children are responding to the choices that you're making. You may need to opt out of the choices that you're making. Maybe you're not down the right path. That's for you to choose, and that's what I fight for, is your right to choose in the United States of America.
That's exactly it. So we, the last several years that I was doing all this fighting on just making sure that people were educated on the COVID shots, and then they can make their own choice. Like you, I wasn't saying what people should do. I was just trying to give people the information. That's exactly why my team and I built GoldCare, was so that the people could get the information, the accurate information, and then make a decision. Sometimes you want to see a doctor. Sometimes you just need accurate information so you can educate yourself and be empowered. In fact, I'm kind of prejudiced towards, I'd like people to see doctors less. That's actually my orientation. It's not that I don't believe in all the things that are good and helpful that I learned in medical school, but I don't think we have to medicalize as many scenarios as we've medicalized in America. And I want people to have access to that information. That's GoldCare. The information that we are talking about tonight, we will give to people when they sign up for GoldCare. I will give you my research, the research that I do, the people that I lean on, the people that I look to, the scientists that I depend upon. That's why we're here. And Drew, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Exactly. Just like you've heard so far from Del, from Dr. Weldon, and from Dr. Gold, it is our responsibility, our own personal responsibility, plus it's a duty of ours to activate as citizens for medical freedom. All of the information you're hearing tonight is exactly the type of discussion that happens on the GoldCare platform every day. We can't encourage you enough to come check us out and see what we're doing, especially since Dr. Gold is giving you the first month free. The other thing that we'd like you to do is please share this live stream. We have many thousands of people watching it, and we love to get more eyes on it, as many as possible. So please come join us as we continue the conversation.
Okay, so the next kind of subject I want to bring up with both of you is the question that's, I think, on a lot of people's minds is, should I take the shot or not? And I like that Del said it's really up to each person to figure out the risks and benefits, educate themselves. That's what I believe in. But in general, for the record, I had all vaccines that the CDC recommended, and I gave my children the vaccines that were on the childhood vaccine schedule. That was just kind of my orientation as a physician. I've given many, many vaccines out in my career as an emergency physician. I didn't really have a dog in the fight, so to speak. I did learn a lot in the last few years. But I guess the kind of the top line question is, should I take the shot or not? When you see those graphs about measles having plummeted 98% prior to the vaccination program being started, it does give somebody pause. And then, where to go? So I'd like to throw that question to kind of like to Dr. Weldon, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but you are practicing clinician, and what are your thoughts?
Well, in the area of informed consent, this is very, very important. And I believe, Del, that actually a lot of people are now much more informed than they used to be. And the reason I say that is 10% of parents are refusing the MMR, which is really very, very significant, because epidemiologists say to get sufficient herd immunity amongst the American population, you need to get that up to 95%. And most of those people, I have found from experience, are declining it because of good reasons. They've read about some of these side effects. And I've always contended a big part of the problem is I believe some of these children who are becoming autistic are actually getting it from the MMR. Not all of them, but some of them are. But you have no recourse if your child is damaged from the MMR. And so that's feeding all of this. Now, I still recommend getting the measles vaccine. I wish they could separate it out and you could take the measles and mumps and rubella at different times. That's what we did with my daughter, and then my son when he was born. And then when he was due for his second measles shot, bingo, it was no longer available. And I asked the head of the CDC, her name was Julie Gerberding, because I was in Congress at the time, why did you take the separate vaccines off the schedule? And it was all for the purpose of trying to get more people vaccinated, because if you have to do 3 separate vaccines, some people may slip through the cracks. So there was no medical reason for it other than trying to get more people vaccinated. I think they should continue to make all 3 of them available. But I recommend that you get it. I don't necessarily recommend you get it for your child at 12 months. I think there is some evidence to suggest some of the children that are damaged by the measles vaccine perhaps wouldn't be damaged if they got it slightly later in life. And there is enough evidence of that many European countries give the measles vaccine later, not at 12 to 15 months, but at 18 to 24 months is when they give the measles vaccine. And the whole theory behind that is their immune system is immature and they really can't handle the vaccine. Now, I think we need more research to really, and we probably need a better vaccine. I want to say that as well. There's been zero research, zero funding for the development of a better form of measles vaccine. And I think we can do better. 100 years from now, doctors may look back at the way we treated vaccinations today, which is, one of the hallmarks of it is you really need cell-mediated immunity to remove a lot of these viruses from your system. But all of these vaccines we give just generate antibodies. And there are some very interesting, very intelligent people working on new types of vaccines that would engender cell-mediated immunity. What I'm saying is that I think we can do better. And historically, we have improved some of the vaccines. The DPT is now the DTAP because they discovered that a lot of kids were being damaged by the pertussis component. And so they switched over to something called an acellular pertussis. So we can improve these vaccines a lot. But I have to recommend people get their kids vaccinated for measles. It does put a lot of kids in the hospital. It can cause serious side effects. And it can, in rare circumstances, cause death.
So I want to jump in there. I just have to say that I just have to remind the audience that Dr. David Weldon was Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s choice to lead the CDC, and he was nixed by the Senate subcommittee or Senate committee that didn't think they could get enough votes because they told and they screamed from the rooftops that he's so anti-vax.
Yeah. And I got to share one thing about that whole story with you. Historically, the HHS secretary just hired the CDC director, and I would have just been installed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I call him Bobby, and I've known him for 25 years. And because of the COVID disaster, two senators, Senator Rand Paul and Tommy Tuberville, changed the law so that they had to be confirmed. And both of them were going to vote for me. They changed the law, but it opened a window for some other people on the committee who, for various reasons, didn't want me. And really, Pharma didn't want me. They didn't want me. They didn't want Bobby. They couldn't get rid of Bobby because Trump wanted Bobby, but they could get rid of me. And so it's unfortunate. I would like to be there. I'd like to be their part and be part of the whole process of really making America healthy again. But yes, you got me on record on your show, Dr. Gold. I support measles vaccination.
The reason I point that out is because my core fight is free speech and fighting disinformation and propaganda. So that is one of the things I've said about you, that you're tremendously anti-vax. That's why your nomination had to be killed. So I just had to share that. Del, I just want to kind of give you that same opportunity to answer that question, if you would take this shot or not, because you have a different perspective.
Well, I can give you full disclosure. I have not taken the shot. I have had none of my vaccines. My mom was, I suppose, a rebel a lot, long before this was really an issue. So I wasn't vaccinated as a child. I don't vaccinate my children, especially not after the investigations I've done, which I was in the middle of when I started having kids. Not one of the childhood vaccines that we give our kids has ever been through a double-blind, randomized control trial using a placebo. It hasn't been through the gold standard that almost virtually every pharmaceutical product that we take goes through. They're skipping safety. And so that doesn't mean that the vaccines aren't safe, but what it means is they're not allowed to say that they're safe. They are making a statement that is not backed in science. There's So that's one issue. I usually don't inject myself or my kids with products that haven't been safety tested, and that happens to be the case here. I also have read many incredible studies that show the benefits of having wild measles as a child that you don't get from vaccinations. You have a reduction in heart disease, a reduction in cancer. If you have both mumps and measles as a child, you have a 20% reduction in heart disease. Do you realize that that would save 200,000 people per year, that alone, if we were allowing people to have measles and mumps? So for the 400 that were dying back in the 1960s, which gives you that 1 in 10,000, we've traded that. We could have had 200,000 people saved from heart disease. Ovarian cancer, I believe it's ovarian, might be cervical cancer. I'm pretty sure it's ovarian cancer, is cut in half if a woman had measles and mumps as a child. So there's actually benefits to these things. And we know this about science. We know that whether you believe in, divine creation or evolution, the results are still the same. We've been designed to, dance with viruses and bacteria in a part of our biome. We have millions of viruses and bacteria crawling on our hands right now. I believe that we are really messing with the system when we get into antibiotics, when we start injecting ourselves and trying to attack a measles virus. We know, for instance, when you get a flu shot, that you're 4 times more likely to develop another upper respiratory condition. So it's, we're just moving deck chairs around like we're doing something in science, but I think we're really putting people at risk. Now, I'm not going to ever tell anyone what they should do. As I said before, I'm just telling you when I look at it. But I will say, the measles right now, maybe it is a little more deadly. I would argue, Dr. Gold, that the Brady's Bunch episode didn't have one of the kids not being able to breathe and having to be medevaced out to a hospital. People weren't needing to have, a proper, pneumonia treatment afterwards, not very often, or I don't think you would have had a laugh track around it. Now, that's not necessarily science, but I come from things from a cultural media perspective, and there's just something that tells me that there's something going on here. Now, there's also other issues. We're so toxic right now in this world. We have 260 toxic chemicals found in the umbilical cord of a pregnant mother. What is that doing for these people that are fighting measles? I was just talking to Dr. Hassan just the other day, last week, and she said that she tested like 1,000 people and 5% have bifidobacteria in their guts, that they don't have proper biome inside of their stomach. What is that doing to our ability to fight the viruses that we would have naturally fought when we weren't eating McDonald's, when we weren't drinking fluoride, when we weren't eating meat that had pesticides and herbicides and vegetables? This is the whole thing that Robert Kennedy Jr., he's got a big job ahead of him. Nobody's saying that vaccines are causing autism all alone. Dave Weldon made that clear. But could it be the vaccine with glyphosate and fluoride or 5G or all of these things put together? The problem is everything that is making our environment toxic right now was once approved and said to be safe by our regulatory agencies. And that's the corruption that needs to change if we're going to be a smarter species. And just to finish it off, while we've been vaccinated, when we got 10 vaccines in the 1980s, we had a 12.4% chronic illness rate. Now that we're giving 72 vaccines, we have a 60% chronic illness rate in our children, meaning they have a neurological disorder and autoimmune disease. That is the greatest decline in public health ever recorded. Something has gone wrong. And one thing you cannot say is that time where vaccines were increasing, we got healthier. We didn't. We got sicker. Now, is that all to blame on the vaccines? We don't know, but you cannot claim they're making us a healthier species.
So what I find really interesting about this, and I'm going to give back to you, Dr. Weldon, as two of us, we went through medical school, we went through residency, and I'm so alarmed at what I wasn't taught and what I wasn't shown and the things that I've seen, right? I, for example, wasn't educated on a lot of the things that Del has mentioned and talked about, things I've learned over the last 5 years. And you as I don't know your age, but I presumably a little bit older than I am. And what do we have to say about this? I mean, it's our profession. And why was I not taught this kind of, questioning or thinking about it or factors in med school? Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a great question. You really kicked it off at the beginning of the show when you showed those 2 graphs and how the bulk of the improvement in vaccine deaths occurred before the vaccine was introduced in 1962, I think it was. The death rate had dropped 98%. Why were you and I never shown that? Why was that never discussed? And you can attribute it to a lot of things. You could attribute it to groupthink, and there is groupthink in medicine. People think it doesn't occur amongst scientists and medical professionals, but it actually really does. And I can cite for you a lot of examples of that. But the other thing is the influence of, I believe, pharma on medical schools. And you can go to just about every medical school in the United States and you'll see the Pfizer chair of this department, the Merck chair of that department. Many of these medical school deans sit on pharmaceutical industry boards. And if you want to print money, come up with a vaccine, show some research that indicates that it works, and get the CDC to put it on the pediatric schedule or the adult schedule, and bingo, you're made for life. And there is not, there's a few things Dell said I don't agree with, but there's a heck of a lot he said that I absolutely agree with. And one of the biggest ones, and this is one of Bobby Kennedy's biggest themes, is we really need better research. We need really good research. We also need to reform the Vaccine Act that indemnifies these pharmaceutical companies. It changes the whole paradigm. If I'm a pharmaceutical executive and you've developed a new drug for me, I have a tremendous duty, a fiduciary duty, to protect the stockholders and the employees of the company, to make sure that drug is safe before it goes on the market and starts being used by the public at large. In the case of vaccines, it's the absolute 180-degree turnaround on that. I have a financial interest not to investigate that vaccine thoroughly and make sure it's safe, because all the liability is not on the company. All the liability is on the government. And if you're a parent and your kid is injured by a vaccine, guess who you go to court with? You go to court with the federal government. And guess who the defense lawyers are? They're Justice Department lawyers. So the deck is stacked. And I can't tell you, as a congressman, I'm still getting these letters today from parents of vaccine-injured kids, and they get absolutely no help from the government. They get absolutely no help from their health insurance company. The health insurance company turns around and says, oh, the government says in the American Academy of Pediatrics that it was not related to any of the vaccines you got. And I can't tell you that the devastating effect of all this. It's the whole system is bad, and the whole system needs to be reformed.
So the reason we have been working for years now to build GoldCare was exactly what we're doing tonight. We want to give you this information, and we want you to have access to competing information. I was well aware that Del Bigtree and Congressman Dr. David Weldon have different perspectives, and I want people to hear all of it. And whatever interests you or resonates with you, that's the direction you should go. And GoldCare is we put together naturopathic doctors and allopathic doctors, because it's very clear to me that allopathic doctors, which are medical doctors like myself, did not have a full education in the medical space. We did not learn a lot of things that naturopathic doctors did. And at the same time, naturopathic doctors don't know a lot of things that I know and that Dr. Weldon knows. But we put that together, and that it really is what GoldCare is. It's conversations like this that you can trust. And back to you, Drew.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Just to build on what you're saying, you're exactly right. Legacy healthcare wants us to believe a certain way. They don't give us other options or opinions like we heard from Del earlier. And I really do love the biggest piece of GoldCare is our community, is the Wellness U educational portal, where you can come and learn and ask these types of questions and hear different perspectives and different opinions, so you can make the best decision for yourself. You don't need a doctor in the system making that decision for you. You need to make the decision for yourself. This conversation has been so great so far. Please continue to retweet this. I just looked at the live stream numbers. We're over 22,000, 24,000 viewers right now, which is amazing and just shows how powerful these types of conversations are.
Great. Sorry about that, folks. Del happened to have mentioned a clip that I'm about to show. He didn't know I was going to show it, but I guess he's not going to be that surprised. And the reason I'm showing this is because I think, somebody said earlier in the show, what's happened? Like, why did this person die? Del, you're speculating, is this more virulent strain? Again, I'm not a virologist. I'm not a scientist, really. I'm a bedside clinician. But I think something different has happened to doctors. I mean, the kind of almost like the collective amnesia or the group think, whatever it is. But this is how we doctors used to think of measles, or how the culture used to think of measles. Let's play the clip, please.
What are you doing home from school?
They sent me home. Measles.
It's either measles or a strange case of red freckles.
You have got a temperature.
They told me 101.1. What's the record?
Never mind.
Oh, are you sure it's the measles?
Well, he certainly got all the symptoms. A slight temperature, a lot of dots, and a great big smile.
A great big smile.
No school for a few days.
Say hello to my dotted son for me. Tell him I'll bring him some comic books and I'll see you later, dear.
Okay, honey, bye.
Boy, this is the life, isn't it? Yeah. If you have to get sick, you sure can't beat the measles. That's right. No medicine.
Inside or out? Like shots, I mean.
Don't even mention shots. Yeah.
Dad says I should go to school.
7 students confirmed with measles, 4 others possible.
How? They had to have been vaccinated.
These moms never vaccinated their kids and lied about it. Vaccines are harmful.
You are endangering the health of every child in this city.
Liv, no, it's turning blue.
Call 911.
I gotta say, I don't know how we got there as a society. It's just crazy to me. And then this is just like what we said during COVID. They said that the unvaccinated were killing people. And that's what we're seeing in pop culture. And that's Del's lane. But the pop culture is blaming the unvaccinated for things. And I am very angry at my peers. The American Academy of Pediatrics, one of their vice presidents said, literally said, you must not give people a choice. Frankly, giving people a choice is what got us here. So she's blaming unvaccinated people and at the same time taking away your Bill of Rights, both simultaneously in one fell swoop. And then the general public is out there sitting here listening to various news reports, and they don't know what to think. They don't know what to believe. That's our mission at GoldCare, is to make sure that you have information so you can decide for yourself what to do, what to believe. So Del, I want to come back at you and something. So when I first started on this journey a few years ago about COVID, one of the things that really struck me as a person who wasn't really into the vaccine question at all was how healthy the people were who were just not in the vaccine side. You know what I'm saying? It was very interesting to me because as an ER doctor, the average person I saw over 50 took 4 medications. That was just kind of normal. And it was very different in the unvaccinated group. And that's your group. That's what you said is your peer group. I'm just
yeah.
That observation, it's really struck me.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to look at it. My parents, I'm sure my mom, she was Native American, and they were very poor in upstate New York. She said the local doctor would test every new drug that came to town, stick with every new vaccine. She felt like she was a test subject. I think it's why she made the choice that she did to go in an opposite direction in raising us. But my parents are in their 80s. My dad still jogs better, longer, further than I do. None of them are taking any medications. My mother was just in a hospital with a bowel issue that she healed beautifully. And every doctor and nurse came in, they could not believe she was on no medications, that she was as healthy as she was. There's a better way to live in this world based on nutrition, taking care of yourself, exercise. The problem when you look at those two videos, the juxtaposition, how did this happen? Well, what happened was during the Brady Bunch era, at the commercial break, you were watching commercials for pancakes and mops and kitchen toasters. Now, if you watch the commercial breaks, 50 to 70% of the advertising is the pharmaceutical industry. It owns your television. So it's actually funding how the shows are made. It's definitely funding your news anchors. That they are working for the pharmaceutical industry. Basically, your TV is a billboard for pharma. All of the media you're watching is to keep your attention just so you're there to see the next flash of a pharmaceutical product that they want to sell you. So that's really why in media you've seen that change. And of course, the medical industry is the same way. The doctors, the textbooks are funded by the pharmaceutical industry. The big wings that are put on universities on what are we going to teach? You're not going to get a thorough, you're going to get, I think, 5 to 10 minutes on nutrition and preventative care. It's all on what we do once you're sick. And the world is designed simply to ride with you until you're so sick that now we give you a surgery or a drug, and then that drug has a side effects. We add another drug, and then we're on this conveyor belt. There's a different way to live, and a lot more people every single year are beginning to live it, and they're finding biohacking methods and ways to be healthy, and recognizing that being more in concert with life, wanting a strong biome, wanting unpasteurized milk, wanting to get raw milk, and saying, I like the bacteria, I want the bacteria. This is used to be the old thinking, let your kids, play in the dirt. We have just sterilized our world. And I think our species is on the verge of extinction because of it. Okay.
First of all, just so interesting. So Dr. Weldon, I'm going to challenge you because you and I come from that same perspective, very traditional medical training. And then I was face to face. Not only was I meeting people who were unvaccinated really in large numbers for the first time in my career or life in 2020 and beyond, but I had 25 years in the emergency department where I'm telling you, the average person over 50, it was on 4 meds, and it was quite uncommon to have anybody over 40 who wasn't on 1 or 2. It was very uncommon. And I just noticed that myself as a practicing clinician. So I can attest to what Del is saying. And then what do we say? I think doctors have a role to play, but to make things better. But what say you in terms of improving the nation's health?
Well, there's a lot to this picture. Del is focusing on what roles the vaccines themselves could be having in terms of our declining general medical health. One of the statistics that scares me a lot as an Army veteran, and my father fought in World War II, I don't remember the number. It's only like 25% of young people can qualify for the military today, either because of obesity or a chronic illness. Young people can't serve, which is that's a little scary when you think about this is the greatest country in the world, and we won World War II fighting the 2 greatest powers, and now 75% of our kids can't qualify for medical or health reasons. So making America healthy again is a really important issue. Now, how much of it is vaccines? That's a really good question. I think the data on the vaccines playing a role in chronic allergies and chronic sinusitis is very, very intriguing. I think nutrition can be playing a big role as well. Lots of other factors out there. But definitely when it comes to vaccines, I think people need to be more well-informed. And one of you mentioned a little while ago about, I think it was you, Del, about how the vaccine industries basically control the evening news. And it's very obvious. You turn it on and they're not 30-second commercials, by the way. They're frequently 60-second commercials. Sometimes they're 90-second commercials. Those are multi-million-dollar commercials to put those on. We need more freedom, that's for sure, and we need a lot more research, and we really need informed consent when it comes to vaccines. I'll tell you an amazing story I just heard recently. One of my partner's son, who's married, an adult son, had a baby. And the baby was born, and the pediatrician wanted to give the baby in the nursery the hepatitis B vaccine. And his son was told, as I would have told my son, they're going to do that, and that's an adult illness. It's a sexually transmitted disease. And so he told the pediatrician, I don't want my kid to get that vaccine. And the pediatrician dismissed them as patients, said, I don't want to take care of you anymore. And which is really scary. It's becoming almost like a police state. You got to get these vaccines. And why on earth would you dismiss that person or that child is a potential patient, an insured patient, no less. Probably because the insurance company is scoring you if you give all the vaccines on time and on schedule, and you get a bonus if you vaccinate all those babies in the nursery.
There's first of all, that's true. We know that pediatricians really can't keep their doors open if they don't comply with the vaccine schedule. So they do discharge patients. But what scares me is the groupthink that goes along with the people that are willingly or just mindlessly accepting the vaccines. I actually look at each one individually. When we have people come to GoldCare, we talk them through individually. So I'm not in favor of groupthink on either side. But the religion of public health demands that people are completely adherent to that worldview. And I find it very troubling. And I think that goes along with thinking you can just pop a pill or go to a doctor and fix things and not eat well and not exercise every day. I just think they go hand in hand. So I actually don't even take what Del says as only about vaccines. I'm saying that I think they go hand in hand. I think they go together. I want to also point out for people who don't know that advertising pharmaceuticals direct to consumers on media is something that we do in America and they do in New Zealand. And these are the only two nations that do this across the world. And in fact, America didn't used to do this. This all changed. It was either in the 80s or in the 90s. Direct to consumer advertising completely changed how medicine is practiced. I know this because I was a young girl at the foot of my father, who was a doctor, who told me when it became legal to do so that it would destroy medicine. And I was very struck by the fact he used an aggressive word like destroy. I was very surprised. My father did not talk like that. I'll never forget, he said it will destroy medicine. And I fear that he's correct. You can't turn on television, not be inundated. And also as a patient, you then go to the doctor absolutely thinking you need to be on these medications. So, so much to talk about.
If I can just comment on that. When I was in Congress, I started to looking into making it illegal direct to consumer pharmaceutical advertising, because people don't know, and you can make a slick ad, and a lot of these things are very expensive and people don't need them, and it was really the Supreme Court, I believe, that did it. And I was basically told you'd have to write a bill, and then you'd have to put a clause in the bill that strips the court of jurisdiction of it, which is constitutional. There's a provision in the Constitution that allows the Congress to strip the court from any say on this issue, but it's very, very rarely exercised. And if you put that clause in there, people don't want to do that. They like the court review. And so, you're absolutely correct that you go to most of these European countries, you don't see this stuff on TV. And some of these things that they're advertising are outrageously expensive. When I say outrageously expensive, I don't mean $1,000 a month. I don't even mean $10,000 a month. Some of them are $20,000 and $30,000 a month to be on these drugs. Direct to consumer advertising is what's going on.
Del, I just want to invite you to give some comment on that. I mean, media is your world. And I'm highly offended when I see these ads on television. I know exactly what it does. The patients come in to me in the ER and they want that. And then if I don't give it to them, it's a whole long thing, and there's complaints, and it's unbearable pressure on most clinicians.
That direct-to-consumer marketing allowed us to almost lose our First Amendment rights in the United States of America. You were censored, Dr. Gold. I was censored. Robert Malone, the inventor of the COVID vaccine, was censored so that they could push a narrative. They destroyed our economy. They locked us down in our houses. And now we know there was no science behind it. Tony Fauci admitted the 6-foot distancing rule. We just kind of made it up. We were promised that the vaccine would stop transmission. We were guilted into believing that we were putting our neighbors at risk if we didn't do it. And then our president was told by the pharmaceutical industry to go out in front of the televisions, promise everybody that this would stop transmission, and had him pass laws that ultimately said you're going to be forcibly vaccinated with this product that we now know didn't work to stop transmission if you worked in the health industry or if you had more than 100 employees. It was as close to losing the First Amendment right that we've ever seen in the United States of America. And when you lose that right, you have no other rights because you can't fight for them ever again. We had the Democratic Party running out of COVID saying that we are going to stop misinformation. Well, the misinformation came from our government. And when the liars, the one that gave the misinformation, say they're going to be the arbiters of truth, you see why our founding fathers were so brilliant in their vision that we should always leave this power in the people. The power of the people should be with your voice and your ability to speak. The power of the people should be within your body and your ability to decide what goes into your body and the bodies of your children. And if we lose that, we are not citizens. We are not in a free country. We are farm animals. If the government can inject me or my children with a product I do not have any control over, I am not even a human being. I am property of the United States government, and that has to end right away. And it's going to be hard to end it when everyone's staring at their television that is giving them a mantra that they're sick and dying, and pharma is the only way that they can live on this planet. It's going to be very difficult to change that. So I think, I want to remake the movie Network in a modern time and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I want everyone to throw their television out the window, because our politics, we're on the verge of a civil war because of our televisions, and we actually should love each other. If we sat down and put our biases aside, put our politics aside, and talked about what we cared about, we'd realize we agree on more than we disagree. We're being torn apart by that television, and that television is owned by the industries that are poisoning us.
I just want to elaborate just one point that you said, because I'm not sure that everybody listening understood exactly that connection, which I am 100% with you, Del. So it's not when pharmaceutical advertisers are purchasing so much cable news or mainstream news airtime, they then get to call the shots on which stories the newscasters speak about. This is what Del is talking about. So pharmaceutical advertising is paying for about 65% of the ads that you're seeing on TV, right? So when there's a story that pharma doesn't like, they have such muscle with the network that they can kill the story. A lot of people think that's why Tucker left Fox News. I'm not privy to know, but that's exactly what Del is talking about. Incredibly dangerous, incredibly dangerous. You know what's going to happen though is legacy media has put themselves out of business. So look on a tremendous decline. And then the independent media has popped up, and this is probably going to be the solution if Congress isn't able to help us. Dr. Weldon.
Yeah. Podcasting, programs like this, GoldCare, more and more people are turning away from the legacy networks and legacy media and turning to new media to get their information, and they're getting more accurate information. I said earlier, 10% are refusing the measles vaccine. I don't think these people are ignorant. I think they're well informed, and they've actually read all this stuff, and they've heard people like me and Dell and others speak, Dr. Gold, and they're just being cautious with their families. And the power of Big Pharma is huge. It's gigantic. They're very powerful on Capitol Hill. They spent about $450 million. That's $500 million every year on lobbying. I mean, I remember there used to be a toxic mercury additive in the childhood vaccine called thimerosal, and pediatrics and CDC put too much of it in, and they didn't figure it out until it was too late, and millions of kids had gotten this toxic dose of mercury. And I had a bill to mandate that it all be stripped out. And the only people who would sign on my bill on the Republican and the Democrat side were people who did not take money from the pharmaceutical industry. If they were getting money from the pharmaceutical industry, they treated me like I had measles. They wouldn't sign on my bill at all, which tells you a lot. I mean, it's tough to get reelected every 2 years in the U.S. House of Representatives. You got to raise $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, and once you start taking money from pharma, you're reluctant to do the right thing, and the right thing was to get the mercury. Now they did get the mercury out, and it's been out for about 20 years. So it's yesterday's news. I relate the story just to make the point that pharma is extremely powerful. Indeed, I think they derailed my nomination. That's my own personal opinion.
I have no doubt, and I will say that people should just keep an eye on the person most responsible for nixing your position where he lands after he loses his Senate seat in 26, right? Almost certainly he will be working for one of the big pharmaceutical companies, a topic that Robert Kennedy knows well about regulatory capture. I just want to have a couple very quick closing remarks and just invite both of you, if there's anything you'd like to say to wrap up. I just want to encourage everybody, building GoldCare for me was my response to the massive disinformation and propaganda that caused so much fear in the American public and people across the world that they willingly gave up their sovereignty. They willingly gave up their freedom because they were so afraid. And that's happened because of propaganda. And, you know, as Del really very eloquently said, that is, GoldCare is the antidote to that. We give you accurate information, we give you competing viewpoints, and we also give you access to naturopathic doctors and medical doctors who have no incentive other than to talk with you and put the doctor-patient relationship first. Dr. Weldon, if you have any closing remarks, if there's anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. I was disappointed when my nomination was derailed, but as I tell all my patients who are very happy I'm not, going to Atlanta, primary care doctors are very hard to find, but my hours are less and my pay is a little bit better. And so, but I was willing to go and I was willing to serve. I served in the Army. I was raised by my father to believe that America is the greatest country in the history of the world and history of mankind. And I served in Congress after serving in the Army, and I was willing to go back. But God is good, and I trust in his divine control. And if he wanted me in Atlanta as the head of the CDC, I'd be there now. And it's been a real pleasure to be on your program. Thank you, Dr. Gold, for what you do with GoldCare. I think it's very important. I know many people rely on the resources you make available through this. And Del, it's again great to see you again. And I appreciate the work you've been doing your entire lifetime on educating people and better informed consent. So thank you, Dr. Gold. Thank you, Del.
Thank you, and don't hang out just yet. I really want to thank you first of all, Dr. Weldon, for your time, and I just want to point out how difficult it is to find really high quality public servants because their nominations can be kiboshed, and you, the American people, are told a fairy tale. You are told, "Oh, Dr. Weldon is very dangerous, very anti-vax, very dangerous." And, you've heard from him tonight, and I just want you to think of that the next time you read a news story that says something that you think is highly alarming. Think about how accurate the news isn't. And so, Dr. Weldon, I appreciate you, and I thank you for your time. I thank you on behalf of everybody who's watched you tonight. Thank you. And Del, I'd love to hear some final words.
I want to say, first of all, we can so easily, when we talk about medicine science, lose track of the human beings. I know I speak for all of us on this call, but my heart goes out to the families here in Texas that have lost their two children. That is a very real experience. It is heartbreaking. It is tragic. It shouldn't happen. No parent should have to watch their child leave this earth before they do. So my prayers go out to them. And there's no easy decisions in this world. These are very complicated times. There's a lot of different industries that are tugging at us, and most of them are using fear. I think we have to have faith. We have to have faith right now. We've got to get back. I love that, Dave brought up, that God knows what's right for him. It's what I think empowers many of us that do the work that we do to move forward and be brave, because I'm not here to decide how long I'm on this earth. I can only decide what I do with the days that I'm here. And I want to say that this is a spectacular time to be alive. Robert Kennedy Jr., who I stood beside as he ran for president, and who I represent now with Maha Action, the nonprofit we've started to support the work that he's doing. He's one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever met. I've never seen anyone more courageous and able to walk through the fires. I also want to point out there's a lot of questioning. We're at this time very critical. We become so critical that I think we get in the way of our own successes. Dr. Dave Weldon is evidence that Bobby didn't get his whole team around him. He's still fighting to get all of his team around him. He is in, as they say, up to his eyeballs in alligators in there. We need to pray for him. We need to stand with him. We need to celebrate every little win he has right now so that they hear our voices in Washington, D.C. They are afraid of us. This vote did not go how they wanted. The mainstream television that's owned by Pharma spent 24 hours a day speaking out against Robert Kennedy Jr., speaking out against President Trump. And no matter what you think of those two individuals, what we did see is two people, unlikely heroes, that are now working together, also with other brilliant people in Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel, and Elon Musk is in there helping, J.D. Vance. They're all, I think, working and believe in this moment to make America healthy again. And the pressure, though, has got to come from the American people. I know Dave knows this. It was the phone ringing off the hook that got Bobby past Senator Cassidy. I think there was like 40,000 calls, they said, coming in per hour, some insane number that they've never seen before. It's that engagement that is giving Bobby the power to do what he needs to do. I mean, look at Red Dye number 3 disappeared before he got the job. He didn't do that. But what represented was the power of the moms that were so angry in the middle of this Maha movement that was voting for President Trump to be there. It's our engagement that makes this country work. And it's our freedom to be able to engage and speak that allows us to make the changes that are needed. And it's that freedom that is written every page of our history books in the United States of America. We need to fight for our freedom. We almost lost it. And we need to fight for our health because it represents that we're free. And we need to fight for the right to decide what we do with our bodies. They're ours, and they're endowed to us by God, not by our government. So let's get back to remembering how we're here, why we're here, and who's in charge. That's the people, not the government. Thank you.
Thank you both so much, Dr. Weldon. Thank you, Del Bigtree. And I'm going to turn it back to Drew.
What an incredible discussion tonight. Thank you, Del, Dr. Weldon, and Dr. Gold for joining us. We all have a responsibility to ourselves and our loved ones to make the best decisions we can, especially for our health. You heard from Del and Dr. Weldon, who both shared insights and experiences about legacy healthcare and the constant battles we face, pushing back against the corruption of that system, which is keeping us sick and confused. GoldCare is the single best decision you can make to educate yourself and your family with the unbiased health and wellness information. This medical freedom platform gives you complete access to doctors and a whole range of providers that you can legitimately trust, which is remarkable. The time to join is now. Not when it's too late and you're scrambling to figure out what to do or how to tackle these big medical decisions without having your community and your team already in place. Think of it this way. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Remember, while the GoldCare subscription starts at just $10 a month, Dr. Gold has offered to cover the cost of your first month's membership. Plus, you'll receive the medical research pack that covers everything we discussed tonight on measles. Next month, our medical town hall is covering the topic of cancer, and you don't want to miss it. Thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll see you at the next GoldCare Medical Town Hall. Good night.
Do you feel like the healthcare system is failing you? That's because it is, working exactly as intended to prioritize profits, bureaucracy, and Big Pharma, while leaving you and your family vulnerable when you need care the most. We understand your frustration. You've been asked to trust a system that feels rushed, impersonal, and biased. You deserve better. That's why we created GoldCare. Here, your values matter, your choices matter, and most importantly, you matter. GoldCare is more than a solution. It's a revolution. Trusted by over 10,000 members nationwide, we've built a system that puts your wellness first. With ethical, independent doctors who work for you, not the system, you'll have access to care that's transparent, trustworthy, and aligned with your values. We understand that stepping away from the familiar can feel daunting, but staying in a system that doesn't truly serve you is even harder. That's why GoldCare offers a healthcare alternative designed to work for you. Whether you're ready to step away from the system entirely or prefer to keep your insurance while seeking the transparent care, ethical doctors, and education you deserve, it's time to stop trusting a system that's failed you. Take control of your health with GoldCare. Join today for just $10 a month and become part of the healthcare revolution. GoldCare, built for you, powered by freedom, trusted by thousands.